onda, vatos? Thanks for tuning in to yet another video. Infamous here, San Jose, California. Let's get on with the topic of today's ride. If you've been following Harley-Davidson for as long as, I have, or most people, most motorcycle enthusiasts have been following the manufacturer for some time now, and we all know the decline in sales. Harley-Davidson is in a slump the last couple years.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
So if we know, Harley-Davidson definitely knows that there's just a decline of everything, and for them to be increasing the prices from anywhere from $200 up to $600 depending on the models, I don't know. I mean, I've seen it in the comments. You guys are mentioning $20,000, $30,000 for a bike seems to be the normal or the norm. I saw one of Laidlaw's episodes, podcasts, and he was just mentioning technically prices on bikes these days are actually lower than back in the 90s and 80s and stuff like that. Due to inflation, they were saying technically the prices are actually lower. Some of the 2021s, some of the 2020s actually went down on price. The lowrider was actually selling for under $15,000 last year before they discontinued it. Out here in America, this motorcycles, it's not a necessity. I mean, depending on the person's situation, financially, who knows, but here in the States, a bike like this, you could get yourself a sedan, and a real good one too. Real reliable, good sedan. And that's just the financial part of it. I mean, there's also some other stuff. If you consider how America's been acting up over this virus, over this pandemic, I mean, people are willing to give up their freedom just to be protected. People are giving up spending time with their family, enjoying freedom. People are giving up a lot just to be safe. And if that's how a lot of these Americans, a lot of these other folks feel about it, then being on a bike is just not safe. It ain't. You have a more likelihood of being involved in an accident and in a fatal accident than you do driving a vehicle. So I do not know. Maybe that also has a little bit to play in part. Not only is it the fear, the cost to get into it. We're talking about insurance, license fees, gear. The dealerships the dealerships are also playing a part too. I mean, out here in California, you just can't seem to find a good dealership. Now, I know every dealership is different depending on the state, but here in California, if you're buying a new vehicle, you have to buy it here in California. It's mandatory. You can't register a vehicle outside of California if it's new. It has to be California, and it has to have the emissions. It has to have, CARB certified. It's just everything. It has to be California. So by California limiting the marketplace, it just makes it a little bit difficult for new riders to find a better deal. You can't just go anywhere else. And a lot of these other dealerships, they have markups, they have fees, they have dealer fees. I already spoke about this stuff in another video, but it's just the cost is exponential. It also doesn't help getting into a brand new market that you're just not familiar with. You don't have the right foundation in a whole different market, kind of like what Harley-Davidson did with the Livewire. I just, I don't get it. That's a whole different marketplace. That's a whole different animal. I've been at a manufacturer dealership that's actually had a switch into EV vehicles. And, it wasn't just the resources, the manufacturing, everything. It wasn't just that. You also had to include the training. The master technicians were the only ones that were able to get that training for the EV training, and the sales guys, just the whole staff needed to get informed on EV vehicles.
One eternity later.
With, you know what, I am going to say Harley has some balls, definitely, to be down in sales the way they are and to be taking, you know, risks. They have some balls on them, especially with the Pan America liquid-cooled engine and everything else. With that being said, you know, getting into new technology, technically it's not their first liquid-cooled engine. They've tried it. They've actually tried liquid-cooled engine. They tried modernizing their bikes, but those bikes, they just didn't perform the way they thought they would. And you know what, I'm not sure what it is, but you know, most of us that are still buying their Softails, we're still buying their oil-cooled, air-cooled, push-rod engines. Like myself, I was never in the market for any of those bikes. I was never in the market for an FXDR. I wasn't in a market for a V-Rod. This is what I wanted, and I don't know. Maybe it's the overall cost for these bikes going up, including inflation and stuff like that. You know, you can't really find any plastic components on these bikes. Even the switch housing themselves, it's made out of metal or whatever, you know, alloy or metal. Everything on this bike is pretty much metal. You can't really cut back on cost. When you're looking at Japanese metric cruisers, metric bikes, a lot of those bikes, they have alloy and plastic fairings. Because, I mean, you start to wonder, like, how are those guys able to sell these, you know, rockets, 100 horsepower machines, liter bikes, beautiful machines. Those bikes look gorgeous as well. They look good, and they're around $10,000, $12,000. Their most outrageous price on those bikes, you're looking at $17,000, $16,000, $18,000 for some of those super bikes that they offer. And they're offering crazy amount of horsepower, performance. We're talking about, you know, brakes, Brembo brakes. I mean, a lot of value there. And that's why a lot of people, they look at these bikes and they just think we're dummies.
A few moments later.
So is Harley-Davidson going to be able to get out of this slump? I don't know. I mean, with prices going up and the overall technology on these bikes staying the same, just look at the touring models. The main difference between the 2009s and the current ones is just the overall performance. We're talking about, you know, the 96, the 103s, the 107s. You guys get the point. The same frame from 09 until the current, it's the same frame. Same thing with the Dynas. Same thing. Overall, the same bikes. They don't really add a lot of technology. And if you look at 2021, that's pretty much the same. You can actually go get yourself a 2018 M8 Softail, and you can buy parts for that bike. It'll fit just like if it would fit on a 2021. I just don't know what's the answer, and I'm hoping with the Pan America and with the 1250 Custom, you know, those bikes being modular, being able to just, you know, swap out a few engine parts, swap out a few, you know, the chassis is the same frame on the Pan America and on the 1250 Custom. Hopefully with them having that modular design, Harley-Davidson can probably turn this thing around and sell some bikes, and hopefully they could, you know, just drop the price a little bit. Not everybody can afford a $40,000, $50,000 CVO. I've seen the CVOs in person, the 2021s, and ooh boy, they're gorgeous. You know, seeing it on the internet, seeing it on the photos, and seeing it in person are two different things. You can say what you want about the CVOs, $20,000 bikes. Dentists are probably riding those bikes, but you see those bikes in person, there's some benefits. They're absolutely gorgeous. I saw the Road Glide armored I fell in love with that bike. The detail is staggering. The detail alone on the CVOs it's out of this world. I spent about 15 minutes looking at the Road Glide CVO. I could have probably spent maybe another 10 minutes taking all the detail, taking it all in. You know what? Let's just end the video here. These bikes are expensive, but they're beautiful, and you're also supporting American made. We just gotta think of it that way. Like most of the parts on my bike, a lot of the aftermarket parts are made here, and they're made here in the USA. $300-400. Yes, it is pricey, but you're supporting American businesses. So you guys just stay out there, stay safe. Don't believe everything you read. Life's a risk. Get out there and ride. Later.